It is week number 4. Every game, every matchup, spreads, totals, where the sharps are betting, everything you need to set your fantasy football lineups. While this video is live, the first 5 or 6 hours, I will answer every single fantasy football question that gets dropped in the comments. And of course, make sure you're subscribed to the channel if you're not. Only about 42% of you guys subscribed. We corrected a little bit of that last week. Let's get it going with the first game on the docket. West Coasters, 6:30 a.m. kickoff. 9:30 a.m. Eastern in Dublin, Ireland here. The Vikings taking on the Steelers. The Vikings are 2.5-point favorites. Minnesota implied for 21.5. The over-under set quite low, though, at just 40.5 points. The under catching a little bit of the steam. Both offenses have struggled mightily, and both defenses are starting to play better, so I can't imagine there's going to be too many points in this one. Both quarterbacks are sits. You don't play Aaron Rodgers or Carson Wentz here. Jordan Mason, however, you do play because he was playing a lot before the game became a blowout against the Cincinnati Bengals. The stat of the game will showcase that in a second. Pittsburgh's run defense has been bottom 5 against fantasy football running backs. Jaylen Warren also been getting a great workload versus the Minnesota run defense. They are about an average matchup. DK Metcalf is in your lineup versus the Minnesota corners. Isaiah Rodgers coming off of a perfect 99.9 PFF grade last week with a monster stat line, potentially one of the best we've ever seen for a defensive back in a single game. Jefferson out there, of course, because he's Justin Jefferson. Jordan Addison back off of his suspension. He served a 3-game suspension for an off-the-field driving incident, and he is back on the field. We'll see if that's a boost for the Minnesota offense. You can definitely start TJ Hawkinson in your lineup after a nice bounce-back week in week 3, and then the Pittsburgh defense and both kickers are definitely in play, especially given that this is a 40.5-point over-under. It's in Dublin. I would expect a weird kind of kickerish type of game. Will Reichard's been absolutely nails. Chris Boswell's been absolutely nails as well. Stat of the game for this one. In Jordan Mason's first start last week for the Minnesota Vikings, the Vikings ranked 4th in EPA per rush and 7th in success rate. In 2024, with Aaron Jones as the starter, they were below average at 22nd and 18th respectively, and Jordan Mason played 75% of the snaps before the game got out of hand, and he is one of the most explosive and consistent runners in the NFL through 3 games. So Jordan Mason, if you guys picked him up, if you had him on your roster waiting for an Aaron Jones injury, you are going to reap the benefits over these next couple of games because he has a great matchup this week and he's getting a great workload and playing super well. Moving into the 1 p.m. slate, we have 7 1 p.m. games, 4 4 p.m. games, a Sunday Night Football, and 2 Monday Night Football games here. The Washington Commanders heading to Atlanta to take on the Atlanta Falcons. They are 1-point road favorites against Atlanta here. The over-under set at 45 points. A pretty high scoring week so far. We have a lot of games above that 45 threshold, which I would consider to be a high scoring week, but we are seeing the under catch a major amount of the steam. And for those of you guys who are wondering what the colors and the numbers mean, there's 16 games on the slate. So if you're 15th and in red, it means your over-under steam is basically the 15th lowest of the slate, and that's where those numbers come. Essentially, green means good, yellow means average, and red means bad. That's pretty much all you need to know. Pace of play is among the slowest on the entire slate. Washington's DVOA as an offense, about an average matchup. Atlanta's DVOA as an offense, not a great matchup against the Washington defense because they've been very good at stopping the run, which is pretty much all Atlanta's doing well at this point because Michael Penix has played super bad. Start Jaden Daniels, assuming he plays, against the Atlanta defense. If Marcus Mariota is going to start this game, I think he's a viable streamer, which I'll talk about in the streamer section, but you probably want Jaden Daniels out there. It looks like Terry McLaurin, assuming he is active, which it doesn't look like he's going to be, would see shadow coverage versus AJ Terrell, who also might not be active for this game. So that might be an irrelevant statistic. It looks like we're going to have Deebo Samuel as the lead receiver here in Washington, potentially with Marcus Mariota. Sit Michael Penix. He played super bad against Carolina. I don't think anybody's going to be risking starting him. And of course, Bijan Robinson's going to be in your lineup, but he has a bad matchup. And Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, who's been missing practice right now. Keep an eye on his health because if he is out, Chris Rodriguez figures to be the early down guy, and Jeremy McNichols kind of that Austin Eckler role. If Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt is out for this game, you could probably start Chris Rodriguez as a flex option and maybe even Jeremy McNichols as well. But if Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt is out there, I think he's a low-end flex option that you can use. Drake London, let's get him back on track. Washington's secondary has not been good. They should be able to get some things done in the passing game. And Darnell Mooney also been playing really, really bad this year. I don't think you can start him until he starts to play better. Kyle Pitts is a streamable tight end. Zach Ertz, a streamable tight end, especially without Terry McLaurin. I think both of those guys are top 15 plays for me at the position. So if you need a tight end, they're definitely both in play for you. Stat of the game, per PFF, Michael Penix recorded a 29.3 PFF passing grade in week 3 against the blowout loss to Carolina. That is the lowest recorded PFF passing grade for any quarterback all season, but that should be remedied by the lowest coverage grade defense in the NFL. The Commanders rank 32nd with a 37.7 coverage grade. So if Michael Penix looks bad in this game, we got to be worried about this passing offense, but hopefully he should bounce back in a major way because the Panthers are a much better pass defense than the Commanders are. So moving into the next game, we have the Buffalo Bills taking on the New Orleans Saints, a whopping 15.5-point spread in this one. The Bills expected to absolutely wallop the Saints, who just took a massive beating to the Seattle Seahawks a week ago. Over-under set at 48 points, but the Buffalo Bills implied for 31.75 of those, so we should see a massive point performance from Buffalo here. The pace of play is the fastest on the slate, and Buffalo's DVOA as an offense versus the Saints' DVOA as a defense presents the biggest advantage of any offensive and defensive matchup on the slate this week. You're starting everybody on Buffalo. Josh Allen, easy matchup. James Cook, easy matchup. You can flex Khalil Shakir or Keon Coleman if you want to. You can stream Dalton Kincaid as a top 10 tight end if you want to. Alvin Kamara and Chris Olave are in your lineup as far as the Saints side of things. They actually have pretty good matchups against a Buffalo run defense and pass defense that has been susceptible to pass catching running backs and high volume receivers specifically. But we do expect that the Buffalo Bills are going to rout the Saints here en route to a big win and a 4-0 record. You can stream the Buffalo defense. I'm sure you guys are going to be excited to do that. And of course, Buffalo's kicker, Matt Prater, is in play as well. Stat of the game is that Dalton Kincaid ranks 3rd in the NFL among all tight ends with 2.13 yards per route run. He also ranks 1st among the Bills wide receivers with 2.13 yards per route run and a 69.2 PFF passing grade. In back-to-back weeks, Dalton Kincaid has produced 30+% targets per route run. He's still limited on 60% of the routes or so on the season, but let's see if the Bills decide to give him more playing time because he's playing super well. He's getting the targets, and it looks like he is slated to have a great matchup in this one. So start Dalton Kincaid for sure. I think a lot of people are going to treat him as a sell high given the fact that he's not playing a lot of routes, but I actually think his routes are going to increase given how well he's playing. Cleveland Browns at Detroit Lions. The Lions are favored by 7.5 points, 44.5 point over under. The under catching a little bit of the steam, but I do like this game environment generally speaking. The Lions have a nice DVOA matchup, even despite how good the Browns defense has been. I think you could stream Jared Goff in this matchup, but keep in mind the Cleveland pass defense has been very good. You could start Jahmyr Gibbs. You can start David Montgomery. Of course, Cleveland's run defense has been very good. And of course, Amon-Ra St. Brown being one of the best receivers in fantasy right now, he is going to be in your lineup. Jamison Williams can be in your lineup. And of course, Sam Laporta, a streamable tight end. Just keep in mind that the Browns defense has been so good that they could stifle this Lions offense. Quinshon Judkins is going to be in your lineup on the Browns side of things because he is playing a massive role in this offense. Jerry Jeudy and Cedric Tillman are flexible options and streamable tight ends, Harold Fannin and David Njoku. Given the game script, they're 7.5 point underdogs. It's possible that in the second half of this game, the Browns are playing from behind, have to throw the ball a little bit, and that results in Jerry Jeudy targets, in Cedric Tillman targets, in Harold Fannin, David Njoku targets. So keep that in mind if you need to play some Browns. I think they're a decent option. The Cleveland Browns offense is 28th for fantasy defenses, so that is baby food for the Detroit Lions. They can be a streamable option for you there. And the Lions kicker, Jake Bates, is definitely in play. The stat of the game for this one, both run defenses are bottom 5 in plays allowed to opposing offenses. So both defenses like to slow the game down. I would expect a heavy dose of the run for both teams. And of course, good defense in general. Maybe lean on the under in this game if you're betting it. And again, maybe expect a slight down performance out of Jamison Williams types, out of Sam Laporta types. Just given the game environment here, I don't think we're going to see fireworks necessarily. And I do think the Lions could have a struggle in the first half on offense, like we saw in the Ravens and Browns game, for example. Titans at Texans. The Texans are 7-point home favorites. The worst game environment of the week here. Over under of just 38.5. The under catching a lot of the steam. It does look like that is mostly Tennessee Titans based because the Texans as an offense should have a half decent matchup here. You can see CJ Stroud, a decent matchup. Nico Collins, despite seeing shadow coverage from L'Jarius Sneed, he should be able to get things done coming off an 11 target game last week. Christian Kirk had his first game back, saw 8 targets. He's definitely a streamable flex option there. Nick Chubb, a flexible option as well. Elikayo Manor, knowing that if he plays, Calvin Ridley should see shadow coverage from Derek Stingley, but he's not practicing right now, Derek Stingley, so keep that in mind. But Elikayo Manor, a usable option. And then if you're looking for a defense, the Texans defense, a juicy matchup for them. And of course, Kaimi Fairbairn going to be in your lineup. Stat of the game is that Calvin Ridley has the worst catch rate among NFL wide receivers with at least 10 targets, just a 38.1% catch rate. Even if Derek Stingley misses this game, which is the way that it's trending right now, he simply cannot be trusted. Elikayo Manor is ranked higher for me this week than Calvin Ridley, marking the first time that this season that has happened. And like I said, Christian Kirk, also a little bit of a bonus stat, 8 targets on just 77% of the routes in his first game back. Definitely a usable flex option. Moving into Carolina Panthers, taking on the New England Patriots. The Patriots are 5.5-point home favorites here. Over under of just 43 points, so not a super high scoring game environment, but the pace of play is decent, and the DVOA of the two offenses versus the opposing defenses is also decent as well. You could start Drake May against Carolina's pass defense. They've been exploitable against quarterbacks, but not necessarily against opposing wide receivers, and Drake May is going to probably have to get it done with his legs. Bryce Young has a nice matchup, but you're probably not going to need to mess with him in your starting lineup. Chuba Hubbard was added to the injury report this week on Thursday with an injury, so make sure Rico Dowdle is rostered as of today, Friday morning. We don't know Chuba Hubbard's health status. Maybe he'll be back at a full participation. It won't matter. But Chuba Hubbard, assuming he plays, is a great start against the New England run defense. Trevion Henderson should see an increased workload this week against Carolina, knowing that Ramondre Stevenson and Antonio Gibson had fumbling issues, and he played a large majority of the snaps once those fumbles took place. So Trevion Henderson is a usable flex option this week, even though he hasn't been getting the workload. Tetairoa McMillan is a great start this week, one of the easiest matchups on the slate. Christian Gonzalez may play, so keep that in mind. If he does play, that's going to downgrade that matchup, and he'll probably shadow Tetairoa McMillan. But if he is out, then you can feel confident starting T-Mac, and you can feel confident starting him anyways, given the volume he's seeing. But just keep in mind, his matchup would be downgraded if Christian Gonzalez makes his season debut. Sit all of the New England wide receivers. You can't trust Booty. You can't trust Diggs against this matchup. They've been dynamite against fantasy wide receivers. What you're going to need to do is play Hunter Henry, because that is how the passing game is probably going to operate. Carolina has been absolutely awful against fantasy tight ends. The New England defense and kicker are definitely in play for you here. The stat of the game: in 2024, the Carolina Panthers allowed the most touchdowns to tight ends with 11 on the season. Through 3 games in 2025, they've allowed the most yards to the tight end position with 74 per game. Moving into the next game, we have the Los Angeles Chargers traveling to New York for Jackson Dart's debut game. The Chargers are 6.5-point road favorites. The over-under 44 points. Over catching a nice amount of the steam. So, Vegas expecting and the Sharps expecting a nice little potential shootout here. And the Chargers have just an absolutely awesome advantage as an offense. So you are starting all of your Los Angeles Chargers. Justin Herbert's in your lineup. Amarian Hampton, of course, is in your lineup. Big bounce back for him in week 3. Ladd McConkey, QJ, and Keenan Allen, all top 30 receivers in my weekly rankings this week. So all of those guys are out there for you. And, of course, the Chargers defense is in play. It's a rookie quarterback making his first start. Jesse Minter could probably confuse the crap out of this dude. Cam Scadaboo, probably in your lineup for the Giants, given the workload he's about to see. And same with Malik Neighbors, assuming he's back from that shoulder injury. And, of course, Cameron Dicker, the kicker, is in your lineup. Now, the stat of the game for this one is actually Giants related, because it's pretty straightforward for the Chargers. You're going to start all their players. Giants are 7th in EPA per play this season outside of the red zone. So between the 20s, they've actually been moving the ball really well, but they rank 31st inside the red zone. Now, the exciting whites, Jackson Dart, who can run these RPOs and run the football, and Cam Scadaboo, who's obviously going to be really good in the red zone because of how he runs, they could really complete some drives here in this game. And it wouldn't shock me if this game was a lot closer and, came down to the wire and was like a 30-27 game. And Jackson Dart has a nice little debut because he can move around with his legs. And I do think that's going to be a weapon that he utilizes pretty quickly in his NFL career. So even though this is a tough ask for your first NFL start, I do actually think that Jackson Dart could maybe be a fantasy relevant quarterback pickup on the waiver wire next week. I wouldn't start him this week. It's too risky. But if he has a nice game, he might be a nice pickup going up against the Saints in week 5. Eagles and Buccaneers. Obviously, I'm repping my Buccaneers right now. And the Bucs are not in great shape given the injuries that they've suffered, Mike Evans and, some of the defensive injuries and whatnot. But Tristan Wirfs could be back for this game. Chris Godwin could be back for this game. And I would actually venture a guess to say that both will be, given that last week we heard that this was the target date for both of them. The Eagles are 3.5-point road favorites in this one, over under 43.5. Under catching a little bit of the steam. The DVOA of the Eagles offense is the bigger advantage over the offense of the Buccaneers versus the Eagles defense. You're going to be starting all your Eagles. Jalen Hurts is in your lineups. Saquon Barkley, a nice easy matchup against the Buccaneers pass defense against running backs. I mean, the run defense itself is really strong, but as a pass catcher, that's how Breece Hall got there a little bit last week. A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith. The Buccaneers corners have played a lot better this year than they played last year. With Jacob Parrish, the rookie nickel that they have. Jamel Dean's playing well. Zion McCollum playing pretty well. So A.J. Brown, Smitty might have tougher matchups. It could be a Jalen Hurts with his legs, Saquon Barkley, Dallas Goedert game, if I had to guess for the Eagles here. And then Baker Mayfield, a little bit of a riskier start, given that he's coming in with a bit of like a biceps issue. And Mike Evans won't be in this game. Chris Godwin will probably be on a pitch count of some kind. I do think you can start Igbuka, no problem. He is obviously going to be in your lineup. Same with Bucky Irving. Chris Godwin, I probably wouldn't mess with him if you guys have him. I would like to wait and see what happens in week one of him being back, but I don't know for sure if he's going to be on a pitch count. If we hear before the game that he's not going to be on a pitch count, then maybe he's a better start at that point in time. The stat of the game here is that when Tristan Wirfs plays for the Bucs, they're an elite offense. They average 29.5 points per game since 2024 with Tristan Wirfs at left tackle, the best left tackle in football, and they average 25.5 points without him since week one of 2024. The Bucs have also won 4 of their last 5 games against the Philadelphia Eagles, including 2 straight. And the Buccaneers have stopped the tush push more than any other defense in the NFL because of, number 50, Vita Vea, and some of the guys up front there. So keep that in mind. I do think that Jalen Hurts will probably get it done with his legs. Goddard probably have a nice game, and Saquon probably have a nice bounce back. But A.J. Brown and Smitty, maybe not so much. Regardless, they're in your lineup. Los Angeles Rams into the 4 p.m. window taking on the Indianapolis Colts. This game didn't have a lot of juice a couple weeks ago, but now it does. Los Angeles is favored by 3.5 points at home. Highest over-under on the slate of 49.5 points. The over getting hammered by the Sharps right now. 34% of the cash versus the public money on the over. So it looks like the Sharps love this game to shoot out. Pace of play is really high. The DVOA of the two offenses versus the opposing defenses are both top 15 in the NFL among teams this week. I think you can stream both quarterbacks, Daniel Jones and Matthew Stafford. If I had to pick one, you probably lean Daniel Jones given the rushing ability, but Matthew Stafford actually is the better matchup, and I do like what he can do against this Colts defense, specifically if Kenny Moore, the slot corner, is out for the Colts. We'll have to wait and see on that report. That would mean great things for Puka Nacua in this game, and it could be a monster game for him. Both running backs are definitely great plays this week, but keep in mind that Jonathan Taylor has the best run defense in the league going up against him, and Kyron Williams a top 12 run defense, so probably more of a passing game for both teams. Puka and Adams are definitely starts. Adams was added to the injury report on Thursday, so keep an eye on that. Michael Pittman, definitely a start this week, and I do think you can flex Josh down, specifically without Alec Pierce in this game. He might see his snaps increase, and of course, Tyler Warren is in your lineup. If you wanted to stream the Rams defense, just given how good it's been, and maybe you don't believe in the Colts to be this like superpower offense, you could do it. I just probably wouldn't mess with them, and I do think both kickers are in play, but specifically Spencer Schrader of the Colts because he's been the better of the two. The stat of the game in this one is Puka Nacua slot rate up 23% through the first 3 weeks of 2025 versus his 2023 and 2024 seasons. In the slot, without Cooper Kupp there, obviously, that's a big benefit of this. He averages 45% targets per route run and 4.32 yards per route run. Both of those marks are better than Cooper Kupp's 2021 season, where he was the biggest league winner, one of the best fantasy wide receiver seasons we've seen of all time. So I've gotten some things right this offseason, but to be honest with you, this is the one I feel the best about. Me calling Puka Nacua the guy you needed at the end of the first round feels mighty good right now because this is precisely why I liked him so much. I thought he would be the movable chess piece, Adams the X receiver, and Puka Nacua. I had a bold prediction before the season that he could be 2021 Cooper Kupp, and we're seeing that come to fruition. He's the 101 at wide receiver in fantasy right now, and maybe the 101 overall if you were in full PPR wide receiver heavy leagues there. So 49ers taking on the Jacksonville Jaguars, 3.5 points for the 49ers. It appears Brock Purdy is going to come back for this game. We don't know for sure yet, but I would expect him to play based on all the reports we're seeing. Over under of 47 points. Even money for the Sharps. We don't see too much disparity in the betting markets. The pace of play is really high. Both offenses running pretty up-tempo, specifically the Jaguars. Both quarterbacks have bottom 10 matchups, so even though Brock Purdy is slated to come back, it's not a great matchup for him. If you have better options, I think you could pivot away from him, but I do still have him as a top 18 quarterback this week. Travis Etienne versus a tough 49ers run defense. Probably expect a down week from him. Christian McCaffrey, maybe he'll find the end zone this week. Doesn't matter because he catches like 10 passes a game. Brian Thomas Jr. versus the San Francisco Corners is a better matchup than what we've seen from him. Travis Hunter is unstartable until he proves otherwise. Ricky Pearsall, a great start, assuming he plays because he was banged up in practice this week against Jacksonville's secondary. And if Juwan Jennings is back for this game, I do think he's a flex option for you if you need him. Brenton Strange, one of my favorite streaming tight ends of the week, going up against the 49ers. It is a tough defense, but without Nick Bosa now, I do think the pass rush might not have as easy of a time getting home on Trevor Lawrence, and Brenton Strange and Lawrence are one of the only pass catcher quarterback duos in this offense that are actually having a good connection. So I actually like him as a good streamer. And then if you want a defense, I think the 49ers defense a good one. And Jacksonville's kicker's been on fire, so you could definitely play him. Per Hayden Winks from Underdog, the stat of the game here is that Brian Thomas Jr. ranks 9th among fantasy wide receivers in expected half PPR points per game. And last week, he recorded the fastest ball carrier speed of any wide receiver this season in week 3 on that crossing route. So could this be the game for Brian Thomas Jr. where he bounces back? Maybe send out some offers if people in your league are really concerned about him. I do think he is a worthwhile buy low candidate right now. Baltimore Ravens taking on the Kansas City Chiefs at Arrowhead. This is going to be one of the better games of the week for sure. The Ravens are 2.5-point road favorites against Kansas City. That doesn't typically happen. Kansas City, anytime they're at home, it's almost a lock that they're going to be the favorites in the game. But Baltimore has been the better team this year. You're going to start Lamar Jackson, Zay Flowers, Derrick Henry, and all those guys, all the usual suspects. Patrick Mahomes going to be in your lineup. The big questions in this game really are, what do you do with Xavier Worthy? Because Xavier Worthy, of course, is coming off of a shoulder injury. He has been a full participant in practice. It sounds like he was close to playing even last week. I do think Xavier Worthy is a guy that you can trust. I have him as a top 36 wide receiver. If he has a big game, maybe shop him on the open market because of what that re-injury risk looks like for his shoulder injury. But I do think I trust him this week. Isaiah Pacheco, he's getting like 55-60% of the snaps, but he's not doing anything with it. So if he could start playing better, he's going to be a usable fantasy option for you. But for now, you probably want to sit him if you have better options. But he is somehow still inside my top 36 running backs, so that makes him a flex. And then Kelsey and Andrews, both startable tight end options. Over under 48.5 points. The over catching the steam here. Two offenses that should get back on track, especially the Chiefs with Worthy coming back. That should open up some stuff over the middle for Travis Kelce as well. So, stat of the game. Derrick Henry's fumbling versus the Bills in Week 1 Sunday Night Football. Since that play, his PFF rushing grade has been below 48 in back-to-back games. That is the worst 2-game stretch of his career in PFF grade. Chiefs' run defense was first in the NFL in 2024, but through 3 games, it is actually 29th in PFF run defense grade. They've been able to stop the run against the Chargers, but in the other 2 games, they were not able to stop the run. So I do think that we could see a bounce back for Derrick Henry, but if we don't, I would start to get a little bit worried that the guy is losing a little bit of a step. I don't want to go too far, too crazy on Derrick Henry, but he doesn't look great so far. Other than that first game against the Bills, we need to see him play better. I have confidence that he will, but just keep that in mind. Moving into the final 4 p.m. game of the window, we have the Raiders minus 1.5-point favorites over the Bears at home in Las Vegas here. 47.5-point over-under, and the over catching some steam. So this is a nice game environment to start some flex options, to start some players in. Definitely start Caleb Williams. I do think that one of the best streamers of the week is Geno Smith going up against the Chicago pass defense that has been absolutely awful. Dak Prescott wasn't able to get a whole lot done against them last week, but Geno Smith had a nice game against the Commanders, who are a better defense, and I do think that the Bears are exploitable. Ashton Genty, this should be the game. If Genty doesn't get it done in this game and look better and have more efficient plays in a big run or something like that, I would start to get really worried about this guy, because this is the easiest matchup by a country mile that he's played this year. He's played 3 really good run defenses, and I do think that the Las Vegas offensive line will have an easier time moving the Chicago defensive line than they had against the Chargers and against some of the other teams, the Patriots and the Commanders last week. So Genty, get back on track here. Last chance to buy low on him, I would say right now. Both wide receiver cores have top 10 matchups, so you're definitely starting Odunze. You're definitely starting Jacoby Myers. You're probably starting DJ Moore, and you can even flex Trey Tucker if you absolutely needed to. Flex DeAndre Swift, even though it's a bad matchup, he is getting all the touches for the most part. Obviously, Brock Bowers is in your lineup. And then if you need a defense, now I probably wouldn't start one, but you could stream Chicago's defense because the Raiders have actually been really giving it up to fantasy defenses, but I would imagine you have better options, so I wouldn't go too crazy with that. And then Daniel Carlson is obviously a great kicker start for the Raiders this week. Stat of the game. Per PFF, the Raiders are dead last in the NFL versus play action in the NFL, allowing the highest EPA per pass allowed and a top 5 open target rate of 77.8%. Well, Caleb Williams just posted 11.4 yards per attempt versus Dallas, and that was top 5 among quarterbacks all season. So this is a good play action game. Hopefully they can get the run game going a little bit so it threatens that. But I do think Caleb Williams could have a couple of long bombs here, maybe to Odunze, maybe to Burden again, like we saw last week, maybe to DJ Moore. I do think that this could be a great game for Caleb Williams. Moving into the Green Bay Packers, taking on the Dallas Cowboys at Jerry World. This, of course, is the Micah Parsons revenge game and the Kenny Clark revenge game. As a result of that, over-under this game is 47.5 points. The over catching a good amount of the steam. All the Packers that you want to start, you probably can. Start Jordan Love, start Josh Jacobs. I do think that Matthew Golden is a very solid top 35-ish wide receiver start, and even Romeo Doubs, a good low-end flex play. And Tucker Kraft, assuming he's back healthy, which it looks like he's starting to be, is a top 5 tight end for me. So is Jake Ferguson, actually, on the other side of this game. Now, of course, we have the CeeDee Lamb-less Dallas Cowboys offense. What does that look like for George Pickens? What does that look like for Jake Ferguson? I expect a big target bump for both of those guys, so they have to be in your lineup as really awesome plays this week. And Javonte Williams should get the majority of the touches. Keep an eye on Javonte Williams' snap share because it's been declining in 3 straight weeks and Miles Sanders increasing in 3 straight weeks. And this backfield could go to more of a dead even split the way that we see things going right now. But just a footnote right now at this point in time. And I would be okay streaming Dak Prescott, but without CeeDee Lamb, I probably think you have better options. I don't think you have to go with a Dak Prescott stream in this game. And I think there's better options out there for you. Stat of the game, Cowboys have ranked 31st in the NFL in run defense grade per PFF this year, despite adding Kenny Clark, who was supposed to fix their run defense. And the Packers are 6.5-point road favorites against the CeeDee Lamb-less Dallas Cowboys operation in Micah Parsons' revenge game. So what this sounds like to me is Josh Jacobs about to get 25 carries in this game. So Josh Jacobs, if you have to go against him, I pity you because you're probably going to get a lot of carries and probably some rushing touchdowns scored against you in that one. So Monday night doubleheader, thankfully. East Coast Unks don't have to worry about this one because the first kickoff is at 7:15 Eastern. The other one is at 8:15 Eastern. So we don't have to worry about a 10 p.m. kickoff this time. Thankfully, New York Jets 0-3 taking on the 0-3 Miami Dolphins. An AFC shitter battle here. Miami Dolphins favored by 2.5 at home in Miami there. The over-under of 45. I like the over in this one, man. I think this one's going to have a lot of points in it. Part of it is probably because Justin Fields is not guaranteed to play. And if Tyrod Taylor is playing, that could result in less points. But regardless, man, I like the over in this game. I think this one could shoot out. Top 12 DVOA matchups, each offense versus the opposing defense. And it's more speaking to how bad those two defenses are as opposed to how good the offenses are. I think if Justin Fields plays, you got to start him, man. He runs the ball. It's a concussion. You don't usually see a performance dip from a quarterback perspective with concussion. So if he's out there, you got to play him, but you won't know that until Monday, of course. Maybe he gets cleared out of the protocol on like Saturday, and you know that going into the week. I think Tua Tagovailoa is a streamable quarterback. I don't know how excited I would be to start him. I think there's probably better options out there, but you could use him in a pinch. Both running backs have top 8 matchups. Devon Achane and Breece Hall, two of the most pass-catching involved running backs in the league right now, too. So definitely feel good about them. Tyreek Hill versus Sauce Gardner, assuming he's healthy, is the expected shadow matchup for Tyreek, but I do like Tyreek anyways as a top 24 wide receiver. Garrett Wilson has an awesome matchup in this one versus the Miami secondary. Jalen Waddle, also a great matchup versus the Jets secondary, minus Sauce Gardner, who should be on Tyreek for most of the time. And I do think both kickers are in play here. Both of them have top 5 matchups. Now, stat of the game here. This game features the 30th ranked pass defense in EPA allowed the New York Jets and the 32nd ranked defense in EPA allowed the Miami Dolphins. So I would expect monster games from the usual suspects. So that's Devon Achane, Breece Hall, Tyreek Hill, Garrett Wilson, and so on. Specifically, Garrett Wilson, the Dolphins are an everything cheap defense. Now, what I mean by this is that short passes is how you beat them. And that's what Garrett Wilson thrives on. Quick separation, 10-plus target game incoming for Garrett Wilson. So if you have to play him in any kind of PPR format, I do pray for you because he might have a lot of catches in this one. Denver Broncos taking on the Cincinnati Bengals. The Broncos 7.5-point home favorites here in Mile High, 44.5 point over under. The pace of play very fast in this game, so we might see a little bit more points than maybe a lot of people are expecting. Start Bo Nix versus the Cincinnati pass defense. I think this is a good bounce back spot for him. Unfortunately, I have to play against Bo Nix. In the Flock League, that is who Zach is starting at quarterback this week. So if you want any confirmation that he's going to go off, he's going against me. J.K. Dobbins, a great start this week, man. He's been really performing at a high level and a season high in snap percentage last week. So he's an every week starter until we see otherwise. Chase Brown versus the Denver run defense. Very, rough matchups so far, rough efficiency so far for Chase Brown. But I do think he can bounce back a little bit in this game, although that does sound like copium to some degree. Jamar Chase expected to see Patrick Surtain in shadow coverage. So you're starting T. Higgins versus the rest of that secondary. Could be a T. Higgins game. If you guys recall, last time T. Higgins played the Denver Broncos, I believe he scored 3 touchdowns in Week 17 to try and get the Bengals into the playoffs. So T. Higgins got a history against this team, so make sure he is in your lineup. And I would, of course, buy low on T. Higgins before this game. And as you guys probably saw on my Twitter, I did buy low on T. Higgins. It was mainly to go get Bijan Robinson, but T. Higgins was a part of that deal as well. And I feel excellent about it. Hey, sometimes when people knock on your door and tell you they need running backs because they lost one to injury, you give them 2 for 1 and you end up getting Bijan Robinson and T. Higgins out of it. So you feel very good about that in my home league. I'm ecstatic that I'm able to pair Bijan Robinson now with Puka Nacua. Cortland Sutton versus the Cincinnati corners, definitely a decent matchup. I think Troy Franklin is a viable flex play as well. Denver defense and both kickers are in play. I mean, McPherson and Lutz are 2 of the better kickers in the league. And the Denver defense is at home, 7.5 point favorites, so you feel comfortable with that. Stat of the game, Chase Brown has been hit at or behind the line of scrimmage 76% of the time, would be an NFL record by a country mile if it stood for the rest of the season. So you can look at that one of 2 ways. The Bengals offensive line is bad, which is correct, or positive regression is coming for Chase Brown to some degree because it is impossible to be this bad as a run-blocking offensive line. It is going to correct itself eventually. Is it going to come this week? I'm not sure, but the Broncos are exploitable against the run. We've seen back-to-back weeks a running back kind of take advantage of them there. So moving into the streamers for the week, streaming quarterbacks, streaming tight ends. I heard your feedback. Lots of you guys commented last week. None of these guys are available in my league. These are guys that are rostered widely. So I decided streaming quarterbacks and tight ends are only going to be guys that are rostered in under 70% of sleeper leagues. So some of these guys are widely available. Some of them are somewhat available. These are the best streamers, as in guys that are reasonably on your waiver wire that you can use this week. Streaming quarterbacks, Justin Fields versus the Dolphins. Like I said, if he's starting, you got to play him. Matthew Stafford versus the Colts, I like a lot this week as well. Geno Smith versus the Chicago Bears, definitely a great matchup for him. CJ Stroud versus the Tennessee Titans, and of course, Sam Darnold, who already played against the Arizona Cardinals on Thursday night. Streaming tight ends, Hunter Henry, the absolute cream of the crop. If he's available in your league and you need a streamer, go get him. Fannin versus the Detroit Lions, positive game script for the Browns. I like him this week. Dallas Goedert versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, really good matchup over the middle. Servassier Dennis and the Buccaneers cannot cover tight ends right now, so definitely go ahead and pick up Goddard if he's available. Brenton Strange, probably the best option that's widely available or more widely available against the 49ers. And K. Dotton, if you're desperate, is a good option because Baker Mayfield said in his press conference that when K. Dotton has to block more, which has been the case without Tristan Wirfs, he's not as big of a part of the offense. And if Tristan Wirfs is back, that means less blocking for Cade Otton. Now, top 10 defenses in my rankings this week. Instead of doing streamers, like I said, we're just giving you the top 10 defense in rankings. If they're available, go pick them up. Denver Broncos versus the Bengals, my number 1 defense. Detroit Lions versus the Browns, my number 2 defense. Buffalo Bills versus the Saints, my number 3. Houston versus Tennessee, my number 4. Los Angeles Chargers versus the rookie quarterback in his first start, my number 5. Pittsburgh versus Minnesota, my number 6. New England versus Carolina, number 7. Green Bay at Dallas, revenge Micah Parsons game, number 8. San Francisco versus Jacksonville, number 9. Arizona versus Seattle, number 10. Now, unfortunately, Seattle was the better defense to start in that game. Top 5 kickers, Brandon Aubrey, Cameron Dicker, Matt Prater, Tyler Loop, and Chris Boswell. And then kickers 6 through 10, Kaimi Fairbairn, Brandon McManus, Jake Bates, Harrison Butker, and Jake Elliott. So that is the end of today's video. Matchups That Matter was on deck here. We went through everything we possibly could, including Ireland games and 1 p.m. slate and all the over-unders, all the matchups that you guys need to pay attention to, all the streamers you can use, and everything in between. Again, like I said at the beginning of this video, only 42% of you guys who watch our videos are subscribed to the channel. It is totally totally free to do so. We really, really appreciate the support this time of year. It's a big growth period for us. So hit the subscribe button if you're enjoying the content here. Leave a like down below. If you ask a question, least you could do is leave a like. And for the first, let's say 4 or 5 hours that this video is live, I will answer every question that we get. So if you have a start sit, if you have a trade question, leave it down below in the comments. Really appreciate all of the support on the videos this season so far. And of course, if you guys do want our rest of season rankings, our dynasty rankings, our weekly rankings, everything up to date, dynasty trade value chart update coming tomorrow as well. Use our trade calculator, the best tools in the industry, the My Teams feature, all that good stuff. Head on over to flockfantasy.com. Use the promo code FSE when you sign up. Get a free team review voucher when you sign up for an annual Mother Flocker, and we'll cover that live on stream for you as well. And of course, if you get the season pass, you do get a couple of start sit vouchers, trade question vouchers, and all that good stuff. And that'll cover you from now until the end of the fantasy football season, about Christmas time of 2025. So definitely check that out if you guys are interested. If you want that bonus content, that'll be linked down below in the pinned comment. But with that being said, peace out, and I'll talk to you soon.